All right. Well, first off, let's just ask, what's your name
Michelle Prokowski.
and what do you do?
I'm a student at MSU. I'm studying Arts and Humanities and Linguistics, and I work at the Broad Art Museum.
All right. So, well, you know that this interview is about drones, and drones are known as unmanned aerial vehicles. So, essentially what that means is that they're flying robots. And so, I guess the first question would just be, what does a drone mean to you? How would you define a drone?
Um, I think when I think of a drone, I think of an unmanned aircraft. Like, usually something that serves, like, a purpose, so not necessarily, like, the same as, like, those little toy helicopters, but maybe something for shipping or for warfare or for taking video photography, some other kind of purpose. But I feel like in some way it's got to be a step above a remote-controlled toy helicopter.
Okay. So, have you ever used a drone before? Why or why not?
Um, I mean, I've used things that could maybe fit like a broad definition of a drone. Like my Judge used to fly model airplanes that I feel like technically might qualify as a drone, but nobody ever really thinks of them that way. Um, but never anything that I was like conscious of like this is something that would be considered a drone. And probably just because I've never really had the opportunity, nor like would I necessarily trust myself to like fly something with any kind of skill, but
So would you ever fly one if you get the chance, or?
I mean, if there was someone showing me how and it was like insured, I would probably give it a shot. But
So, what do you think that the proper use of drones should be?
um, I mean, I guess it kind of depends on the scale of a drone. Like a small, kind of like personal sized aircraft, essentially, that doesn't have much use outside of like taking pictures. I feel like, as long as they're not on somebody's private property, people can be doing what they want with it, whether that be taking video, playing with it, using it to release balloons or something. But I think when it comes to like ones with capabilities kind of for like whether or not they can be destructive or something like that, I feel like proper use is going to be much more controlled.
Okay. So, with the prevalence of this nowadays, and that you're seeing them more in the news, and also like it's kind of made its way into the civilian market, how do you think that the technology has been changing our society?
Um, I mean, I think it definitely kind of can take away the aspect of like human limitation that maybe it was it wasn't cost effective to ship things by aircraft when you had to account for paying for a pilot and paying for that pilot's training, but maybe it makes it cheaper to use drones, or we can use drones to do things that we hadn't necessarily done before. So just kind of opening up that avenue through technology for people to have access to things that they didn't necessarily have access to before.
So, do you think it's something that people should be allowed to use like every day, or?
Once again, it probably depends on like the scope of it. Like if it's just a drone that can't go, more than a half hour in the air without needing to be recharged, like I don't necessarily see why that would be any more dangerous than things that we've had forever, like remote control, like toy helicopters or toy cars. But if it's got like stronger capabilities, I feel like with any kind of other vehicle, there's that sort of responsibility to educate yourself about how to use it.
All right. So, there's been a, in the news a lot of negative things about drones. Can you think of any positive benefits that drones have had on our society?
I mean, one of the things that I've seen a lot of is just kinds of like video and photography that they can do. That, while it might not be feasible for human beings to necessarily go different places, whether they be areas that are unsafe because of war or areas that just like geographically might not be safe or easy to get to, whether they be jungles, mountaintops, stuff like that, that it's a way of like seeing more of the world around us. And I think that that can be really positive and like giving people a perspective that they wouldn't ordinarily have, or kind of showing things maybe that haven't been discovered, like going through rainforests and looking at what the different kinds of plants and animals and things like that are. The presence of a drone might not necessarily disturb the ecosystem as like a group of human beings trekking through the area. And then even just stuff like shipping things that might be dangerous for human beings to do. A drone could kind of be like a stand-in to take care of that.
All right. Well, I guess on a little bit of a different note, the United States military has used drones a lot recently. They've, especially in these last few years, have increased their usage, or at least we've heard more about it. And I was just curious as to how you feel about the way that the United States military is using their drones.
I think there are aspects of it that are definitely concerning, and one part of it being that it removes, on the one hand, it's safer for the people who are being removed from the situation, so by taking out a pilot on the plane, it makes it safer for that pilot. But I think, on the other hand, removing people from that situation means we have less first-hand knowledge of what's going on, and there's a much wider margin for error if we're relying on, what our impression of a situation is from sitting behind a computer potentially thousands of miles away versus being present in a particular area in a particular region. That can be a concern, with people mistargeting buildings or mistargeting people. And another aspect of it, I mean, it's not necessarily a criticism of drones in particular, but just the way that essentially like modern versions of warfare go, where it's significantly more removed. There's a lot more distance between us and like the issue that we're confronting, and I think in a way that like desensitizes people to it, that they don't have as much understanding of the situation because they can be so far removed from it.
Okay. So, I guess based off of some of the things that the military are doing with this, some of the things that in the agriculture and things like what Amazon is doing with shipping and stuff, drones have been in the news a lot recently. And when was the first time that you started hearing about drones?
I feel like probably the first thing that I heard referred to as a drone was, what are they, the Predator drones? What is that drone with the, I think it's the Predator.
Yeah, it's a Predator.